Metamedia presents New Horizons, conscious conversations for inner exploration and awakening.
Welcome to the New Horizons podcast on the 2025 December solstice, summer in the Southern Hemisphere and winter in the North. I'm Carmen. I'm the moderator for our discussion today. I'll introduce each panelist and their topics with a discussion afterwards to follow. We may answer a question if there's any in the live chat, and we'll close with final words of wisdom. So our first astro panelist is Cayelin Castell, the co-founder of Venus Alchemy, My Star Alchemy, and the former shamanic astrology mystery school. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for nearly 3 decades, she enjoys sharing the mysteries through personal readings and her YouTube channel, and online and in-person events. Her approach is based in the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. Cayelin will provide insight into the celestial magic for this December solstice by navigating the sun's path, the solstice and equinox alignment, the galactic cross, planetary movements, and precessional direction. She'll talk about the out-of-bounds planets culminating with Heaven's Gate. Welcome, Cayelin. Great to see you again.
So great to be here. Thank you. I'm excited. I feel like this solstice is going to be but like all solstices are amazing. And then this December solstice is because there's so many things happening around it. One being that there's a new moon 2 days before the solstice at the galactic center, and suggesting that there's a powerful activation that's happening for us. And then I wanted to just remind people that the reason it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere is because the sun is tracking low across the sky. And it's summer in the Northern Hemisphere because the sun is tracking high across the sky. So the sun is in the sky less time during winter and more time during summer. The days are longer in the summer and the days are shorter in the winter. So this is due to the tilt of the Earth that's currently around 23.5 degrees. So we're going to look at that a little more deeply next. Okay, so this is showing the where the December solstice is currently located in the sky on a sky map of the constellations of the zodiac. And so the 0 Capricorn point where the sun rises is between the constellation of the Archer and the Scorpion. And so that means then on the December solstice we have 0 Capricorn, and then for the next 30 days the sun is traveling through the constellation of the Archer. So the same is true for the equinoxes and the June solstice. They're in different places in the sky. These points move 1 degree every 72 years, and the constellations are the backdrop for these seasonal signs to move through. So one of the things that this December solstice is featuring is an out-of-bounds moon, an out-of-bounds Venus, and an out-of-bounds Mars. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. So next one. So I've shared these before, but I'm just very visual, and I love to, I think this is something that if we can all really embody, then we get the significance of how important this is. So this is showing the sun on the galactic cross near galactic center. The blue line or purplish line is the plane of the galaxy, and the green line is the plane of the solar system, and they cross. And currently that cross is between the Archer and the Scorpion, and it's moving over time. So over 26,000 years, this point will move through every constellation through the sky. And what's really significant is that we're in this time period, at least from 1962 to 2030, where the sun is rising on the galactic cross at galactic center. And then if we look at 1 degree on either side of the exact cross, we could extend the window to 1926 to 2070. So every solstice is significant. It's happening in a rare 26,000 year alignment. And you can see I have the Earth here with the tilt of the Earth, showing that the North Star is pointing towards Polaris. And 13,000 years ago, it was pointing towards Vega. And in 13,000 years from now, it'll be pointing towards Vega again. So over time, it's a slow wobble of the Earth that changes. And this is why the seasonal signs change through the constellations over the 26,000 year period. So that's just to kind of give you a sense. It's like, how do we get our mind around that? Let's see the next slide to see if we can maybe give a little bit of a sense of that. Oh, no, it's not the order that I thought it was. Okay, so this is the chart I ran for Tucson where I'm at of the December solstice. We can go back. Yeah, that's fine. Go back. All right. Well, okay. This I guess I can follow up with this slide. All right. So the current solstice cross the sun, and somehow that my line moved a little bit off of the sun, but it should be directly on the sun at the solstice. What's going to happen in 1,440 years is the December solstice sun is going to rise with Antares, and so that's how it's precessing or moving backwards through the constellations. And I just lost the slides. I don't know. Did Carmen disappear or something? So anyway, just to give you a sense, it's going to be a while before there's a significant shift. And the reason I brought that in is because Mercury is going to be with the star Antares at this December solstice. So in 1,440 years, we'll have the December solstice sun rising with the heart of the Scorpion, one of the four royal stars of the ancient people, and also considered to be by some ancient cultures the key to the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Ascension, as we ascend out of this galaxy through the galactic center. There she is.
Wow.
What happened?
No idea. Everybody froze. Okay, so what slide do you want to be on?
I just went ahead and talked about the one with the sun rising in 1,440 years with Antares.
And then do you want to go back to the...
So the direction of precession is the opposite of the direction of the planetary movement. So planets move through the sky from through the constellations and the way that we think of the signs and moving through things in that direction, but the precession is the opposite direction. And this is a very significant part of the sky because it is where the galactic center is. So the galactic cross at galactic center, and it's right above the tail of the Scorpion and below the foot of Ophiuchus. Okay, now we can go back to the slide with
okay.
Yeah, that one. So we can see Mercury here is at 13 Sagittarius at the time of the exact solstice, and Antares happens to be 10 degrees of Sagittarius currently. Now, in 1,440 years, 3465 CE from now, the current era, is going to be 0 degrees Capricorn. So the seasons move backwards through the constellations, so they're shifting and changing. And what is significant about this is that we experience the changing of myth and symbol over time due to the movement. This is what these two things working together. So it's not just tropical astrology, and it's not just sidereal astrology. It's like, how do the two things work together? And how do we tune into that and connect in with these mysteries? And right now, it's really spectacular because the sun is on the galactic cross at the December solstice. The other thing to notice here is that Venus and Mars are in exact on either side of the sun, and that is representing that they're going to be exactly conjunct the sun in early January 6, 7, 8. They're making their exact conjunctions, and it's a time when we would say that Venus and Mars are not visible in the sky. They're in the underworld. They're going through an initiation of death and rebirth. So it's pretty spectacular to see this on the chart. Okay, I think we can go now forward. Yeah. Okay, so here's something that I find really fascinating about this solstice, and that is that we've got an out of bounds moon at the time of the solstice. We have Mars out of bounds at the time of the solstice. Venus has just gone out of bounds the day before the solstice, and Mercury will go out of bounds a few days after the solstice. And also they will all be crossing the 0 Capricorn point. So Mars crossed the 0 Capricorn point on December 15. Venus crosses the 0 Capricorn point on December 24. And Mercury crosses the 0 Capricorn point on January 1st. This means they're on that galactic cross at the galactic center where the sun is at the December solstice, and they're all out of bounds. They're all outside the boundaries of ordinary reality. So this is what is happening. Is like we can expect the unexpected to be happening with the solstice. It's disrupting what we know, and it's very often very chaotic kind of energy that leads to new creation and new possibilities. So, and then also because we have the moon out of bounds, the very most precise out of bounds is on December 20th, but it's still out of bounds on December 21st. And this is something that can only happen in this way every 19 years. Of course, there's a couple of years on either side where the moon goes out of bounds when it's in the signs of Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Cancer and Gemini. So we're going to have a Cancer full moon on January 3rd, and it's also out of bounds. So we've got this wild, crazy energy that is happening with this solstice that is really an opportunity for us to go outside of our ordinary perspective and thinking and way we see things, and to be open to something new and amazing that can come into the new possibilities at the solstice seed point of a new solar year. So,
Cayelin, I always love when you provide that visual of what's happening in the sky, and the out-of-bound planets are hitting all my personal planets, and it's like, ooh, wild, just wild.
wow.
So,
That's wild. That's wild. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up by we've got Heaven's Gate, the stars of Procyon or Procyon, different people pronounce it different ways, Betelgeuse, and Sirius. And Sirius is the brightest star in our night sky. And at midnight on January 1st, 31st to the 1st, midnight, and actually days leading up to that and after that, but it just so happens to be that you can see Sirius directly overhead, and it's just beaming its light codes directly down to the Earth. So this is showing Sirius directly overhead on the night of December 31st, going into January 1st, over a pyramid down in the Guatemala. And so this is how we can tune in to also getting these light codes and this only happens because this is where it is, and it's 26,000 year cycle. So that we have this happening also. So Sirius is considered the wishing star, and so the story or the song, you may remember this from when you were younger. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do, you, like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. So this is the time we want to be wishing upon the star Sirius as we go through the solstice and we go into this new calendar year of 2026.
Ah, beautiful. Okay. We're doing something a little different. So if Robert or Ray would like to comment about anything that Cayelin has presented, we have the opportunity to do that. I'll look and see if there's anything in chat.
Okay, let me do that. Let's start with it. This whole presentation brings to my mind the Yuga cycle. Because what Cayelin is doing is bringing in endless energies boundless energies to focus in our daily or solstice life. And the wishing star is what we have going on right now in our daily life, just wondering, how long is this going to take? Because every mountain crumbles, and every ocean dries up, and every dream is fulfilled. So these things you're talking about seem to be the visceral, flesh and bone feelings that people have. Everybody watching or listening at this moment, check your own feelings about how things are going outside of yourself and ask yourself, does that matter to you? Or are you building something new? Because this solstice is all about the need to see something new and differently, to think differently, to understand differently, and to act differently. As you said, that sun being in the center between Venus and Mars, the sun also is the fastest moving thing astrologically. So as it moves, first thing it comes across is Mars, the ambition to somehow or other make sense, to act properly. And the sun goes all the way around to become a conjunct Venus, because Venus is in the 12th house of the sun. The unfinished business is higher consciousness, please. That's what we want. That's what this sun wants to do. And all of that is anchored to something bigger. We, in our daily life, have this three-dimensional view swinging around an axis called time. And the time swings around in one direction, but if you're looking at it from the north, it's moving backward, and if you're looking at it from south, moving forward. So it's that kind of time where you have to understand yourself, your path, where you've been, and that should determine to some degree where you have to go. So I got a lot out of this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I just want to say too, I love that you brought up the Venus-Mars thing, because they are joining in sacred union. We could say sacred masculine, sacred feminine, coming together with the sun to source a new way of doing relationship between the two of them. And they only come together with the sun every 6.5 years, and they only come together in Capricorn every 32 years. So this is a big deal that's happening. Yeah. Oh, Ray, you're muted.
I don't know if Robert was going to say something. It looked like you were leaning in.
Yes. And two things. The dreaming. In the Sabian symbols, 30 degrees of Pisces, the 30th degree, the final 360th phase of reality is a dreaming degree. It's where we dream the future before it is made manifest. And we've had both Saturn and Neptune on the 30th degree of Pisces, off and on all year. And that, to me, indicates that we've all been dreaming, redreaming, tweaking the dream, adjusting the dream, seeing elements of the dream show up in 2025 so that we can figure out if that's really what we want to see made manifest. And as with many dreams, there can be nightmares. There was a phase earlier when Saturn was retrograde at the 30th degree of Pisces. I was presented with a legitimate and genuine nightmare. And I had to go through an impossible dream to salvage what has been my dream for 21 years. I had to actually mobilize to preserve what I could of that dream as it abruptly ended 33 days after a 21 and a half year run. So it's like I was dreaming for 21 and a half years, and then abruptly I had 33 days to salvage what I could of that dream. And I figured out there's just some things I couldn't take forward into the new dream. So I thought that that was interesting that you would talk about the dreaming, because this is the last solstice or equinox with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. It's literally the last change of seasons for something like 135 years with Neptune in Pisces. From now on, for everybody on Earth, they will never know another solstice or equinox with Neptune in Pisces. So I thought that that was interesting, that it's kind of like the dream is over in some respects. And once the dream is over, then of course, according to the Eastern philosophies, when you cease dreaming, you awaken to this dream. So, you kind of awaken to a dream from a dream, and then you go back into the dream. So I think that I really appreciate you bringing that up. And the other thing I thought would be good is, to my understanding, out of bounds means that it's beyond a declination. It's beyond the maximum declination of the sun, which is not the same as the longitude or latitude for our viewers. That it deals with declination and the entire concept of parallels and contraparallels, and it's all a very important part of astrology. It's not very well studied or known. But to me, out of bounds, because I've been reading how Pluto is out of bounds, and it's been out of bounds, it's going to be out of bounds, and this is the last time Pluto's out of bounds, and so what does out of bounds mean? Well, I've kind of gathered it means it's unpredictable, maybe things are a little crazy, it's a time when rules get broken, norms get broken, things are outside the norm, and that is something, can you maybe elaborate, Cayelin, on the concept of out-of-bounds planets and how that might manifest other than the usual generic, it's unpredictable, it's crazy, and rules are getting broken? Can you say more about that?
I thank you for asking that, and thank you for the dreaming thing too. That was amazing. I love that. So the sun can only rise and set on the horizon, and can go as far north and as far south, and it never goes past that point. And then but then the planets can go outside that point. So we could say the sun really represents our where it's on the horizon, where it's going in, where as far north or south as it can go, which of course is the solstice or a solstice, either the December solstice or the June solstice. And when planets go beyond that, they're going beyond everyday reality. So they have an opportunity to tap into something that is beyond our everyday reality. And I feel like this is so significant because we have so many planets out of bounds, outside the boundaries of ordinary reality, of what we consider to be our ordinary reality, really tapping us to see things in a different way, to imagine things, to connect with things, to maybe take actions that are not the norm, or not ordinary, or not what has always been, but what are we co-creating and dreaming into for the new, what's next? And this solstice feels super important for that. Plus we have the out of bounds moon in addition to the other planets that are also out of bounds. So it's like supercharged out of bounds energy for this solstice.
Thank you. I also was just at my granddaughter's soccer game, and it was funny because all the players just kept kicking the ball out of bounds. They kicked it more out of bounds than in bounds. And I kept thinking, it's almost like they tried to keep it in bounds, but then the ball would go soaring out of bounds. And I just kind of thought, well, maybe some of our efforts might line up missing where we try to shoot it, but it'll still, the ball will be back inbounds and in place soon enough.
Exactly. Yeah, but we get that opportunity to have something outside the boundaries. I love that. That's
I'm
really good.
thinking that it's time for all of us to color outside the lines just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next astro panelist is Robert Wilkinson, an astrologer with over 54 years experience as a counselor, public speaker, author, strategic analyst, and he is the president of Astrology Arizona. Robert has published the Aquarius Papers since 2004 with visitors from over 130 countries. That was his dream he was talking about. He's the author of 7 books, including The Cycles of Life, 7-Year Cycles and Stages of Change, an original method to see the rulers of each year of life and how our lives break into important 7-year periods. Other books include The Magic of Venus, Friendship, Soulmates, and Twin Flames on creating better relationships, Saturn, Spiritual Master, Spiritual Friend, and The Pioneering a New Look at Mercury Retrograde. The newest version of the Aquarius Papers, The New Dream, is loaded with daily articles on astrology and metaphysics. It can be found at aquariuspapers.substack.com. Robert will take us through the shifting ascendants for LA, DC, London, and Kyiv, and the quadrant emphasis for each location. Then focusing on the DC chart, he'll point out the key aspects and Sabian symbols within the December solstice chart. Welcome back, Robert.
Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover. And as usual, I'll begin by reminding our viewers that no matter where in the world we are when the solstice happens, the sign positions of the planets and the aspects between them stay the same. All that changes based upon our location is the ascendant and the house position of the planets. Generally, the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere begins a season of personal power, reorganization, rededication, release, and renewal. Because the sun just gets stronger from here in the Northern Hemisphere. It tends to, the days get longer, and the individual claims power within a social setup, which then leads to the renewal of life at spring and the fulfillment of the work at the summer solstice. So at this point, the sun has entered Capricorn, bringing a claim to social power where we see the emergence of forms of authority, social structure, and greater social ideals. We're just at the beginning. With planets in 6 signs with several gaps between them, this chart is a bucket Jones pattern with Jupiter as the handle or the nozzle. In a bucket, the handle or nozzle is how you get a grip on things. It's the point of focus. So wherever that falls in our charts is going to be very important for the next 13 weeks. Now, this pattern, the bucket, gives an interest in a cause. So we'll be able to see a lot more people sign up for different causes. Dr. Jones, the creator of the pattern, says the bucket type at its best reveals the real instructor and inspirer of others, and at its worst, the agitator and malcontent. So expect both agitation and inspiration to be in the air the next 13 weeks. This pattern seeks an effective release for energy within social settings, where we impose our pattern on society rather than adapt to what's there. So there's going to be a lot of push energy here, not pull, but push. And so think focused intention. All of us have focused intention over the next 13 weeks, and our attention will be on the house where we have 23 Cancer. And that is a degree of fellowship, of exchanging ideas to create a group whole energy. So Jupiter in Cancer shows the themes are about supply, care, and protection. Now, at this solstice, it was just right after the new moon, so the moon is at 18 Capricorn. It's the new moon phase. So that phase features a lot of instinctive activity, and it's said to be impulsive, subjective, and projects its ideals onto the world. And you can bet that that's going to happen wherever we have Jupiter because of that opposition. Because oppositions, each planet externalizes through the other planet to the degree that both are healthy. So with both Sun and Moon in Capricorn, the focus is on capitalizing on individual skills to further group ambitions. With Sun conjunct Mars, I expect a lot of dynamic initiating activity these next 13 weeks. Now, one of the features of this chart, of all charts at this time, is Saturn conjunct Neptune in the last face of Pisces. So everywhere is at the end of the end over the next 3 months. With conflict between those who think empathy is a divine virtue and those who think it's a bad word. We are definitely finishing up our lessons in empathy with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And that will, of course, give way to more of an agitation and need for direct action once they both enter Aries during this winter season. Now we turn to the sample charts. We go to Southern California right now, and we find one Capricorn on the ascendant. Again, that's the galactic center, so obviously California is going to be really focused in terms of galactic energy. You'll see it's got 20 Libra on the midheaven. This puts 4 planets above the horizon and 6 below, 8 east and 2 west. A lot of autonomous, self-initiated activity in this chart. California is not going to take a back seat in this season. It's going to do exactly what it wants when it wants. It shows a very heavy self-sufficient influence. And the Sun-Mars conjunct the ascendant, I see that as a militant reorganization within the state. And the ruler Saturn is at 26 Pisces. That indicates a determination to do its own thing in its own way, as per the 26 Pisces Sabian symbol. Here, the nozzle Jupiter points to the 7th house. That, to me, would indicate expansive alliances as well as overreaching opponents. Now we go to Washington, D.C., which is the chart for both the nation and just the general tenor of the United States. Here we find 13 Aquarius rising with 2 Sag on the midheaven. Now this flips the script from the West Coast because it has 6 above and 4 below. Again, 9 east and only the nozzle Jupiter in the west. So it shows that the entire United States is going to be heavily, I want to do this. I want to initiate this. There's going to be nowhere that doesn't have a ton of planets east in the United States, and that would include Canada. And Saturn is still the ruler of the ascendant, so it too wants to do its own thing in its own way. Now, here we look at the squares from Venus. Venus is in the 11th, squaring Saturn and Neptune in the 2nd, so it seems that allies and resources are both going to be conflicted at this time. Jupiter in the 6th shows the need to adjust, especially in the public service sector. It would seem to me because in political astrology, the 6th house deals with the public service sector, all of the civil servants and all the public servants. And so here the focus over the next 13 weeks in terms of government is going to be in the public sector. And what this means is the United States has between 18 Sagittarius rising and mid-Aquarius rising. And I say 18 Sag because that's the ascendant in Seattle. And then as we go south of there, then we get into late Sagittarius and early Capricorn. And then as we go east, we go all the way through Capricorn and we land in mid-Aquarius, which is the ascendant in Washington, D.C. as well as Miami. So everywhere west of a line between Ann Arbor, Michigan, down to Indianapolis, and then to Nashville. Think of that line that runs from Michigan down through Indianapolis and Nashville. Everything west of that has Capricorn rising. Everything east of that in America has Aquarius rising. So Saturn rules the solstice for the United States, and that implies it's the end of the end for the United States as it's been. Now we go to London, we jump the pond, and we find 20 Gemini rising with 14 Aquarius on the midheaven. Interestingly, the midheaven of England is very close to the ascendant of the United States. And here you'll see 9 planets are above the horizon So this is a very public emphasis here. 4 is on the east side, 6 is on the west, so it's slightly more oriented toward others, especially because the planets on the west side are Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Mars. All of the personality planets are west. All of the spiritual, metaphysical, socially dynamic planets are on the east. So I would say that London's probably going to play more of a metaphysical role in the next 13 weeks. Here, though, Mercury is the ruler of the ascendant. It's in the 6th, again, at the 14th degree of Sagittarius. The Sabian symbol is the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, a symbol of ancient wisdom. And so I think that the policies of London will probably be heavily influenced by the wisdom, or in some ways maybe opposed to the wisdom because of the opposition. Or it could also be an externalization of the wisdom through that opposition. In any case, Jupiter points the 2nd, so money and finance become the issue for UK in the coming season. The final chart display is for Kiev. It has 16 Cancer rising and 16 Pisces on the midheaven. That exact trine to me would indicate that there is a fundamental understanding and stable harmony between how Ukraine sees itself and what it puts out to the public. Obviously, with all the Pisces up there, this is, to me, a very humanitarian-oriented chart. The moon is in the 7th, so obviously Kiev's opponents are somewhat hard and perhaps a little self-serving. Again, it's not good that the ruler of the ascendant is in the 7th if a country is at war, but I can also say at the same time that we don't have the chart, Russia's ascendant is in Cancer, and so it too has the moon over there. So they're both kind of stuck in a similar situation with the ruler of their ascendant in the 7th opposed that ascendant. Here, it is opposed Jupiter. Jupiter's in the 1st. The handle points to Kiev for this winter. Assuring supplies will be crucial. So let's get back to Washington, D.C. 13 Aquarius is rising. Saturn in Pisces is the ruler, squared by Venus in the 11th. And I'll speak more about that square shortly. 13 Aquarius is the degree of the barometer. So the next 13 weeks gives us a look at the future weather, metaphorically speaking, by noting the inner changes. So 13 is less about outer changes than the ability to go inward to anticipate future changes. There's only one opposition, the moon opposed Jupiter. Again, to me, squares and oppositions are very favorable because squares help you turn corners and put the brakes on things. Oppositions make you more aware. Moon opposed Jupiter shows an amplification of the humanitarian instinct. But because it's expressed through the moon in Capricorn, it will be through organized political ways. The symbol for the moon's degree in Capricorn is one of political power, so expect the people, with the moon in a national chart as the people, expect people to claim political power, which can express the fellowship themes of Jupiter. Basically, when they talk about kitchen table stuff, that's Cancer. And how you engineer it is through Capricorn. So there are 3 squares, Venus square Saturn, Venus square Neptune, and the Sun in a barely separating out of sign square to Neptune. Venus squares, in this case, show the need to overcome negative expectancies or confusion about ideals while expressing creative uniqueness. Because Jupiter is trine Saturn, which is really one of the outstanding stabilizing forces of all charts for this winter, because Jupiter is trine Saturn, the Venus square Saturn tests and releases Saturn's understanding and stability through that square. So Saturn builds through Jupiter and releases through Venus, and wherever those fall in our charts is going to be very important. The trine harmonizes our Saturnine emotional intelligence, and that's teaching us to do our own thing in our own way. The squares from Venus require that we demonstrate our truth in creative ways without expecting that to be difficult or bring difficulty. So this is a good season to use humor and optimism to overcome any lurking pessimism or downer energies that we might feel. The Sun square Neptune shows the need for clarity about what roles we are and aren't playing, and overcoming uncertainty or worry about vague ghosts or fears from the past. As I just noted, because squares release energy, and they put the brakes on things and or turn corners when we need to, this indicates a shift in valuing truth. Venus and Sag, Venus is what we value, Sag is truth. Venus and Sag helps us value truth. And this is putting the brakes on the current Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces fogs and illusions, especially in collective consciousness. So you can expect a lot of Venus and Sag to put the brakes on a lot of the confusion and fogging and gaslighting. Now, one of the outstanding things that we have going on here is a fateful, septile-driven kite, special evolutionary configuration made by Jupiter septile Uranus. Septile is around 51 and change. And they're both triseptile Venus, around 154. And this is a very powerful configuration. It indicates major forks in the road of destiny for those affected, especially focused through the Venus nozzle at 27 degrees of Sag, which is a degree of doing our own thing, expressing our genius in our own unique way. And this operates in the houses where we have Taurus, Cancer, and Sag, and it involves the rulers of our Taurus, Libra, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces houses and planets, because those three planets rule those signs and houses. And the zones that are directly impacted include 28 Taurus to 2 Gemini, 20 to 24 Cancer, 12 to 16 Virgo, 3 to 7 Scorpio, 24 to 28 Sagittarius, 16 to 20 Aquarius, and 7 to 11 Aries. If you have a planet in any of these 7 zones, your life will hit an important fork in the road coming up over the next 3 months. And this is the second Jupiter septile Uranus. Again, all septiles bring us to forks in the road of destiny. And the first Jupiter septile Uranus occurred in the autumn equinox chart. This is the second of the 3, when the next one is coming in June of 2026. And of course, by then, we're really looking at a whole different landscape by the summer, because Saturn and Neptune will both be back into Aries. So stabilizing energies are found in the Jupiter trine Saturn, helping us find the discipline and structure we need to flow forward as we navigate endings. Venus in a waning square to Saturn and Neptune brings those old Pisces energies to a culmination point. So the next few weeks show the inner planets closing in on the outer planets, as Cayelin just mentioned, with productivity beginning in January, leading to renewals in March and April. Jupiter septile Uranus most of December. It's exact in January. Again, the final septile is between late May and the June solstice. These activate forks in the road of destiny, and the configuration will be activated when Mars biseptiles Uranus and triseptiles Jupiter in the first half of February. And again, when it biseptiles Jupiter and septiles Uranus in mid-April. These will be huge trigger points coming up. And other times will be when the inner planets transit the Sag, Aquarius, and Aries zones. I think it's going to be a very productive and specializing season due to the 4-node chord of harmony involving the Moon at 18 Capricorn, Saturn at 26 Pisces, Neptune at 30 Pisces, Uranus at 29 Taurus, and Jupiter at 23 degrees of Cancer. This is going to be very harmonious for all the planets or points we have in the last half of the Earth and water signs. And in this case, Venus allows us to release the positive potential of Saturn and Neptune. And Saturn allows us to release the positive potential of Venus. That's the benefit of the square. By January, the main activity is going to be in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces due to Mars transiting those signs. So for this winter season, those are the most active sectors of your chart. Jupiter will be retrograde for the next 11 weeks. All the planets by late January are going to be within a 160-degree span. It's pretty narrow, a lot of action in the Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces sectors. So finish what you need to between now and mid-January, since that marks when all the inner planets oppose Jupiter. And that's an important full-phase relationship for all of us. We're all going to have these multiple transits in Capricorn opposing Jupiter in Cancer somewhere in our charts. And that becomes a line of realization. Okay, new developments that are going to expand. That's a time to be really clear about how to keep the momentum in whatever it is you're doing. How do you want to represent yourself? How can you use your special qualities to either teach or learn or grow? How can you see a picture, a larger sense of things, a larger adventure that can be expressed in terms of ideas, the Mercury opposition, in terms of relationships, the Venus opposition, and in terms of action, the Mars opposition. So what we're looking at here, that's followed by the inner planets all moving into early Aquarius in late January. And that's going to conjunct Pluto. It's going to sprout all these new Aquarian seeds for the future. So we have this heavy Capricorn Cancer opposition coming down in January, and that's followed by all the inner planets conjuncting Pluto in late January. So there's a lot of new cycles that are going to be set into motion in mid to late January. Of course, with so much Pisces, North Node in Pisces, we're dealing with a lot of non-local knowing, a need for compassion. So I see that Capricorn is all about organized activity which mobilize group energy. So get things in motion. Sun Mars is good. Try not to be too edgy. Do what you have to do. Have faith that as you invite the guests to enter the house, you'll be uniquely gifted. And at that point, I will turn it over to Ray, and I'll leave my final thoughts for the end of this program.
As usual, Robert lays out just a smorgasbord of things for people to think about and to comment on. I'd like to ask Cayelin if there's anything else she would like to say regarding Robert's presentation, and then we'll go to Ray.
It's so good. I love all, and looking at the U.S. chart as Aquarius rising, which is, I feel like, similar to out of balance planets. It's unpredictable. It can be revolutionary, thinking outside the box, doing things in a new and different way. So it feels like that's just adding to everything that is happening with the out of balance energy for the U.S. I know it's different for different countries, but and the end of the end and the end and beginning. I feel like you were really speaking beautifully into that as well. And so one curiosity I have is your thoughts about Mercury being square the nodes on the solstice chart.
Well, I'm probably a little different than many astrologers because when I was first studying traditional astrology, I came across a hard statement of fact that the moon's nodes don't matter unless they're aspected by the moon. Okay. Now, that seemed to be a bit narrow and restrictive in terms of its interpretation, because I think that as a general rule, the moon's axis, the nodal axis, shows us, you might say, our inbreeding of the future and our release of the past. It's where we grow. It's where we demonstrate. It's like you receive from the North Node and you demonstrate with the South Node. So it's that kind of energy. You could say because the moon is in aspect to the node, the North Node, it's in a septile, then therefore the nodes are more active and more powerful. To me, I've always seen that a planet squaring the nodes means that that planet has nothing to grow and nothing to show as a result of the general nodal breathing in, breathing out, line of development, line of demonstration. We're all growing through the compassion and through the empathy of the Pisces, and we demonstrate that through our service, our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health in Virgo. Just as a general axis, we're inhaling through the ability to achieve the fluid endings and bless things to go down the time stream. And we have to do that in every particular. This is not the time to fuss over details or worry about this or that or the other thing. Do not be critical. This is really much more about feeling our way through the endings. And Mercury in Sag does not feel its way through endings. It just doesn't. It wants to jump on its horse and ride off in 52 different directions. And because it is on the degree of the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, and Rujar talks about the power of spiritual ancestry in that particular symbol, it would show that while the mental coordinating focus of Mercury is on that Great Pyramid and Sphinx wisdom, in a sense, that Hermetic wisdom is somewhat at odds with the Pisces-Virgo axis, because Sagittarius and Gemini is the axis of the magician. Pisces-Virgo is the axis of the shaman. They are two entirely different archetypes. I mean, completely different archetypes. And it's like the difference between an automobile technician and a priest. It's just two entirely different functions. And in this case, maybe the Mercury focus is going to be more on the magician side of things, even though we're actually growing through the shaman, the priest, priestess, the guide, if you will. We're learning how to be guides. But Mercury at this point, it is not about guiding. It's about seeing truth, teaching truth, learning truth, and having a grand adventure. That would be my take on that square.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, maybe a couple of comments, but the position of Mercury in the middle of Sagittarius is the Aries decan. So it seems that the truth here needs to be charged up and to be the energy, the desire, and it's in the 10th house of the government or a role that we need to play. So we need to question government with the truth and ask for it. And if we get it, then the 11th house becomes a place where the values and the consciousness and the ambition and the feelings begin to change. That's kind of the feeling for this equinox that I see and I get from you, from what you've been saying. Is just amazing at what you've been able to provide. We'll have to break that down for quite a while. It's going to take till the equinox for people to put it together and act it out, because there is as above, but it's not always as below. And that's where we have to do our work. Put the sky to work in our flesh and bones life. And I think that's what we're trying to help people see here today. I think, Robert, it's wonderful. Cayelin, absolutely great. So for me, I think the time is to kind of wrap it up and bring it to a focus in other words. Carl Jung, for instance, was explaining the process of individuation, which essentially means becoming who you are. He said that the psyche moves in seasons and cycles and experiences inner solstices. And we always do, but we carry it with us all the way to the next solstice. And in the middle of that comes the opportunity for springing up some new ideas and new feelings and new actions. So from this, it seems logical that there's a collective experience of this winter solstice that each of us will feel, and it might be an urge to pick up the task of moving yourself towards some higher states of consciousness, and so to bring forth some new hope for yourself and for all of us for the spring. As the sun begins its journey toward the spring equinox and the summer solstice, we're going to expect, I suppose, some hesitation. We've been talking about it before people can actually act in a collective way on the need for new and transformative understandings of the world and ourselves. I mean, that Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Pisces on the cusp of the second house is in the Scorpio decade. So that Venus up there in Sag says the truth is we need to revive some kind of faith in ourselves as a moon in the 12th house, a people with new beliefs, some kind of desire to change everything, despite the third degree of Aquarius has to do with abandoning ship for the sake of immediate liberation. And what would make that happen is a value conflict between the Venus in Sagittarius and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the second house that Venus rules. It says, you guys are just not being honest and truthful now. So that's across the collective. On a personal level, take it home to yourself, however you can, whatever you discover. But on a collective level, the Uranus says the foundation here has moved out of Gemini, where there's clearly a need to change the way we think. It moves retrograde into Taurus, and the Capricorn decan of Taurus, and what we have to do is transform what we think about the value of the social construction called government. What do we want to do about that? So Saturn and Uranus, past and future, yourself and what you're a part of. What is in between them in the sky? After Saturn usually comes Uranus. I mean, but before that comes Chiron, this wound, this feeling in the second house. Now, I want to talk about Madeline. Where did Carmen go? Well, okay. The second house Saturn-Neptune thing really brings into focus where is Jupiter and where is Neptune. And the most striking thing about this chart, when we get to see it again, is that everything is on the left except for Jupiter and the South Node and other goddesses that you might want to find there who are trying to pick up the pieces of what is left of what we still have. So with everything on the left side, it seems that the left side has to do with all of the energies involved in building some kind of destiny. What is that destiny? Well, with Mercury at the top and Uranus at the top, at the bottom with next to the sign that Mercury rules, our thinking has to change. Our sense of faith in ourselves has to change. With the Aquarius rising in the Gemini section as well, we have to see that it's time for us to change the way we think about being in conflict with what is going on. We are not in conflict with anything. The past is in conflict with itself. And we have to step back like Uranus has and become witness and observe. So I want to talk about that square between Venus and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. I think I just did. But after Mercury comes Venus and go through everything down to Uranus. So it's the values that have to change, not just how we think, but the quality of the valuation of our thought. What thoughts are going to be valuable for us are the thoughts that says we need to change. And so the square is a crisis, or therefore an opportunity that releases a lot of energy that has to be put to work in some fashion. Now that square at Saturn is trying to the ascent to the 10th house, the public life. And that trine is the creative thing. It says, if we understand Mercury, that it is time to act towards change, then if we do that, then we have created a new set of values. Or to do it, we need to create a new set of values. That's what that square is asking for. Put your consciousness and your ambitions together with your feelings in the moon, and begin to see that your values are not being accepted or respected. Then there are a couple of other things, like as a T-square. You call them T-squares. I never could find a T. But the a square that, let's see, Mercury has to the nodes. I think Robert brought that pretty well into focus, but anytime that you have something square the nodes, the issue is how to reorient yourself, because each of these things are an axis. It's a nodal axis. The south is saying, you have it already. What's the problem? Well, the north node says, I don't believe that. I need to learn to believe that. The south node says, well, believe it. Relate to the world. I'm in the 7th house. You got to relate to the world that way. But all those planets on the left side says our destiny is created by a new direction in how we think and how we value. And if we do that, the fulfillment side, the right side of the chart, has two things there. One says, in our own work way, 6th house, service way, we need to revive some kind of faith in ourselves. And that will happen if we're using our faith in ourselves, because it has developed because of the way we have changed our thinking. There's just so many different things that you can find in this chart. It's never ending, but it's a doozy. It's talking about change that is going to take a little time, because as the spring equinox approaches and the summer solstice looks ahead at us, we can expect some hesitation, because there's a need for a lot of new understandings. And the last 3 planets to rise in the order are Mars, the Moon, and Pluto. Pluto tells us there's a desire among us, the people, for some new and real respect for life. Both the Moon and Pluto are in the 12th house, and the Moon is headed directly for it. The first thing that's going to happen is the Moon hits Pluto. And when it is exactly conjunct with Pluto, something like 14 hours, half a day after the equinox passes the solstice portal, underworld shocks and waves may very well begin to emanate from what is likely to be some kind of amateur attempt at scrubbing past actions from official records, or we as individuals might begin to try to clean up our understanding of ourselves and put aside our official understandings that are based upon the patriarchal conditioning that we're all forced to be into. The Capricorn Mars points to a need to focus our ambitions on higher ideals. That's indicated by the presence of Venus in the Sagittarius, sign of Sagittarius, the 11th house of revolutionary change. It's likely to manifest in a lot of exculpable claims of innocence, but the ideals of social change are now well planted in the hearts and minds of those who are transitioning from psychological bondage to the past and are ready to serve and assist in spiritual growth. Okay, Carmen, I think I have done what I can. Thank you.
Well, I was seriously hoping that we would wrap up the analysis of the solstice before 2026 showed up. I know we are a little bit over our hour. I would like to just move forward to people's final thoughts. Cayelin, would you like to go first? We'll go in order of presentation. You're muted.
Yeah, that's sorry about that. I feel like I really feel like the main theme is that we're heading into a new time, and it's like nothing we've ever seen before. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what it's going to be like, but it's probably going to be more amazing than we have imagined, and revolutionary and outside of whatever our current reality has been. It's going to be way outside of that, and I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm excited for that. And yes, it's going to be a bumpy road. There may be unexpected things, and what you were just saying, Ray, about the things that are going to come out that some people don't want to come out are already. I think that's already happening, and more transparency is going to be required. I feel from all of this, and in order to, because if we keep hiding things, we're not going to get to the new. We're not going to get to something that's new and that's going to be of service to all life and to all people, and not just a few, which is what it has been for such a long time. So I feel like it's a really exciting time. The solstice is like a portal or a doorway into this new. It's going to be a new solar year, and of course the calendar year is right behind that. So anyway, that's my sense of it.
Thank you, Robert.
I would say keep navigating the flow, gather what you need to ensure security. This is a season of optimistic caution. Connect with deep soul responses and be drawn into new work. By late January, we'll awaken to rebeginnings, which will lead us to our enjoyable genius. And yet with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, it's going to be a heavy feeling period with radical turns, so keep it simple and pleasant as you adapt to new perspectives. It's a season of one last look at the echoes of the deep waters of life and relationships, and then mobilizing to get things accomplished. Redirect negative expectancies to a new positive vision and new standards of excellence. The immediate future propels our escape from a narrow destiny as we transition from ambivalence and uncertainty to direct action. Finish which can take into the emergent Aries era. It's time to bring the wisdom we got from our autumn retrograde reviews into clear focus. We're moving into powerful spiritual linkages as a result of the new discoveries of last summer. This turning point in the change of seasons brings more endings, along with the ability for us to continue to claim our enduring power of is-beingness.
And Ray, you want to unmute Ray and wax eloquent there?
It is time to understand that things are not falling apart. They are beginning to come together.
I love that. It also reminds me that I think it was in The Science of Mind, they talked about change your thinking, change your life. And then Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I think we're in a time when we can probably do that more than ever before.
Fabulous. Okay, well, I think that's a wrap. Before we go, I'd like to thank each of you for sharing your astrological insights into the December solstice, and to our audience for taking the time to join us. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season, a happy new year, and blessings to all.
Thanks for listening. Enjoyed this topic? Support future consciousness raising podcasts by visiting newhorizonspodcast.org.